Miss Stumbo is going to introduce her sweetie.
That's my sweetie. My name is Janet Stumbo. I am Ned Pillersdorf's wife. Some of you have acknowledged that you recall my name from my previous political career, but mine's over. It's now time for my husband to shine. Ned was born in the Bronx in New York. He was the grandson of 4 immigrants. One set of his grandparents left Poland to escape Russian intervention. If you've seen the movie Fiddler on the Roof, if you have seen the Jewish people escaping Ukraine and Poland in that movie, and the armies moving in, and the desecration that happened, that is Ned's heritage. All of his ancestors were immigrants. They came to this country for a better life. They came as honest workmen and workwomen. They served in the military. His father was in a POW camp in World War II. His mother was a WAC who worked on maps for mapping and topography for the Army. He came here to Kentucky to be a public defender back in 1981. He came because he wanted to do that work. He wanted to help people. One of the first things he did when he got to Eastern Kentucky, and this table over here appreciates this, was to establish the Dewey Dam Dog and Cat Protection Society. And we immediately sued our county government and made them fund our shelter. We started out with a building much smaller than this, and we are now in the process of building a $500,000 shelter, fully funded on fundraising. This has been 40 years in the process, and we've never stopped. That shelter will be built, foundations poured, the walls are going up. When Ned came here, he immediately started looking to help people and help animals and preserve our peace and comfort in our homes. We were watching TV a while back, and Ned made the decision that because the government was interfering with the rights of American citizens, because the government was harassing innocent immigrants, just like his grandparents, who came here for the same reason his grandparents came here, for a better life, to work hard, to contribute, to be a part of this great melting pot we call America. Now, my family's been here in this country so long that actually my great-great uncle married Daniel Boone's sister. So our family has been here all that time. And I love my country, but this man, he has dedicated his life to protecting people's rights, to representing criminal defendants, to representing people who were defrauded in the famous Eric Kahn Social Security mess. I don't know if you've seen the Big Con on Apple TV, or seen the, what's the other one, Ned? The American Greed show about Eric Kahn. But thousands of Eastern Kentuckians got letters in the mail one day saying, your Social Security has been cut. You will receive no more checks. We did not give you a hearing. We did not make a determination that you are no longer disabled. We just made a determination that Eric Kahn committed fraud. These people didn't know that. Ned and John Rosenberg, who is was the head of our legal services, immediately organized the meeting. We immediately had a courtroom full of Eric Kahn clients, and over the course of the last, how many years, Ned? 10 years, he has found through recruitment and basically going out and begging people representation for almost 2,000 people, free representation. We're winning about half the cases, and this is still going on. There are still people out there who are getting letters saying, it's time for your hearing. You have to prove you were disabled in 2011. And that's not easy, folks. That's not easy to dig up those medical records. But that's the kind of man Ned is. He saw a need and immediately reacted. We had that first meeting within a week of the first letters that came, saying that the clients were losing their benefits. So you have to act, and you have to act quickly, or people get lost in the shuffle. They disappear. They become depressed. You can't let that happen to our society, to our citizens. We have to remain active and engaged. Now, Ned will tell you what his political positions are. I can just tell you about his heart. He's the father to my 3 daughters. We have 3 daughters, age 40 and down. He is dog dad to my St. Bernard and my random little Eastern Kentucky Feist, who I adore, my little one Chan. We have cats, we have dogs, we have friends, and we have love. He's always supported me, and he's always supported everyone that he has stepped up and said, I promise you, I will help you. If he says that to you, he might not succeed, but he's damn sure going to try to help you. Now we're not really sophisticated people, you know. I'm just an Eastern Kentucky girl from Adobe Creek, a holler in Floyd County. He was raised in a basement apartment in the Bronx. His father sold clothes at a clothing store in Times Square. His mother designed children's clothes. So we're not fancy people. We were never rich people. We're just ordinary people. But ordinary people know what other ordinary people need. We can see behind the big words and the promises and see what is actually being done. And we know what's being done by this government right now. We know what Hal Rogers has done. Hal Rogers voted for the big ugly bill that is devastating Medicare and Medicaid, that is devastating our hospital systems, our nursing homes. Can you imagine if these Medicaid cuts really go into effect the way they're talking? If you've got a family member in a Medicaid nursing home, I really worry about that. I've got an aunt. I really worry about what's going to happen to her. I mean, she's 80 years old. It's not like she can go out and make money and support herself. She's disabled. Each one of us knows someone or is related to someone in that same position. We have to keep our eye on those people, and we have to keep our minds on what they need and how we can accomplish it. Ned agreed to step up because he believes in people. And I hope you all can support him in this coming race. This is my husband, Ned Pillersdorf.
Actually, Janet left out. She had 8 tumultuous appellate races in 23 counties, and I was always known as Mr. Janet Stumbo. and here's the history question. It wasn't until 1993 till Kentucky finally elected a woman to the Supreme Court. Did that happen in Louisville or Lexington? We elected a true coal miner's daughter, and Janet's portrait was hanging at the state capitol, I guess, until they renovated it. Janet served 26 years as an appellate judge. And why did she resign? I felt bad about it. She had just been overwhelmingly reelected. Here's what happened. And here's why I'm here today. Memorial Day weekend, 2015, Friday, beautiful day. I'm driving home. I get a phone call from a local attorney in Floyd County. Said, our client just got a letter immediately suspending his Social Security benefits. On the other line was Bill Estep, Lexington Herald reporter from Somerset. And he said, Ned, I understand 900 or 1,000 former clients of Ericon are all getting letters today immediately suspending their benefits. I got back to the lawyer and I said, the number's 900 or 1,000. And without hesitating, that lawyer said something I'll never forget. He said, oh Ned, there'll be suicides. Those letters didn't go out to random people. They went out to, eventually about to 4,000 former clients of Ericon. The vast majority had mental illness problems to begin with. And that changed everything. Not only am I an attorney, but I also run something called the David School, which has been my passion for 30, 40 years. You can't get to David from anywhere. It's in a remote area near the McGoffin-Floyd line. Every kid at that school is below the poverty line. We don't charge tuition. I've been the basketball coach. I'm currently the executive director. Anyway, we were having a meeting after I got these phone calls, and I couldn't understand why a state police detective was at a Davis School board meeting. And then he said, come outside, and he said, Ned, I just came from Martin County, where a woman put a gun in her mouth and pulled the trigger, and she got one of those letters. And suddenly we had how many suicides were we going to have? Ericon, just from way of background, not complicated, he was probably the biggest Social Security lawyer in the country. His crime was not complicated. He lived in Floyd County. He was bribing a judge in Huntington, West Virginia. They met halfway between in Lawrence County. And Con, for 7 years, was bribing the judge like 9,000 cash. When his Social Security, 9,000 cash a month. And when they kind of figured this out, the politics kicked in. Back then, probably the most influential Republican was Tom Colburn. I think it was from Kansas. He immediately said all of the Con clients were in on the scam, and the Social Security Administration instituted what I call these Joe McCarthy hearings. They put thousands of my neighbors through these hearings where they had to prove they were disabled years ago, and the rules were so stacked against them. There was a secret finding of fraud they couldn't challenge. The good news is the largest volunteer legal effort in the history of this nation, Jennifer. Lawyers flocked in to help my neighbors. We did more than 2,000 hearings, 300 separate U.S. District Court cases around the country. And what made me feel good is people cared about my people. You know, I'm from Floyd County. I've only lived there 44 years. At one point, Floyd County had the highest juvenile poverty rate in the nation, and they went after these people with a vengeance. And I've always asked the question, instead of Con bribing a Social Security judge, what if a bunch of his clients were wealthy taxpayers? He was bribing some tax court judge. Would they have gone after Con's clients as hard as they went after my clients? I think it's Beverly Hillbillies, negative Appalachian stereotypes. The good news is 10 years later, we basically won. We had the hearings declared unconstitutional. But toward the end, when the second round of hearings started, Janet joined the battlefield. She resigned from the Court of Appeals. The reason I talk about that, Franklin Roosevelt was one of the greatest presidents ever because he set up Social Security. They weaponized that damn bureaucracy to go after the most vulnerable citizens in our state. What happened with this big ugly bill? They have weaponized to go after the most vulnerable among us. This is the current administration is the most anti-poor people administration ever. The big ugly bill has a Medicaid cut in excess of $880 billion. Listen to this. How many hospitals are going to close? The projection is we're number one. Kentucky's going to lead the nation. 36. California, I think 1 out of 8 Americans lives in California. They're only losing 35. What will that do to us? The 5th congressional district that I am running in is the poorest in the nation. We're number one. And what did our Congressman Hal Rogers do? He voted for the bill. The vote was 218 to 217. He cast the deciding vote. And, you know, Hal Rogers no longer makes appearances. I don't know if you noticed that. He has not made he's 88, he's not made a single appearance since August. He's your congressman. There was an interesting story in the Herald Leader where he agreed to an interview. He had to have someone there to help him answer the questions. And not only did Rogers vote for the bill, you know, I don't know if it was him or his staff, the pack of lies they put out to cover that. They said that he was going to, historic middle class, working class tax cuts. Those tax cuts went to the top, 1/10 of 1%, all to the billionaires. But he voted for that. And everything in that bill harms the less fortunate. Now here's the good news. There is no question in my mind what's going to happen in these midterm elections. By the way, I am unopposed candidate for the Democratic nomination. Rogers has 4 or 5 opponents. Who's going to take back the House? Well, the Republicans are obviously convinced we're going to. That's why all this crazy gerrymandering is going on, right? Remember, during Trump's first term, we won 40 seats. The generic poll at that point was 4%. What I mean by generic poll, they ask people, are you more likely to vote for a Democrat or Republican? At that point, the Democrats are only up 4. The current generic polls have us up 10 to 14 points. Instead of winning 40 seats, if we carry 50, 60, or 70, which I'm convinced is going to happen, you're looking at your next congressman. By the way, they gerrymandered my district. I don't want to say this too loud because the legislature's in session, but they gave me 2 blue counties. I've got Boyd and Carter County. It's a long way from here. Where am I going to spend my time? Folks, I don't need to spend that much time in the Janet Stumbo counties. I need to spend my time in Bell County, Pulaski County, Clay County. These are Republican counties. I mean, I looked at the registration, but I want to say to you all, here's what I say to my Republican friends. The current Republican Party is not your grandfather's Republican Party. It's not Dwight Eisenhower. It's not Mitt Romney. It's not the Bushes. The Republican Party used to think that Russia was an evil entity, that Valery Putin was a war criminal. Valery Putin is a war criminal. I am of Ukrainian descent. I was raised by a Ukrainian grandfather. And now, who's Trump's best friend? Vladimir Putin. Who's Trump's enemies? Canada? Denmark? This is not your grandfather's Republican Party. When Mitt Romney ran against Obama, I actually agreed with Romney. We got to be more scared of Russia than anybody. He invaded a democratically elected, a Democrat nation. And today, Putin is bombing the infrastructure of Ukraine, bombing hospitals, bombing churches, bombing schools. Now where's the Republican Party? They're fine with that. The Republican Party never believed really in tariffs. They were free traders. Who are we hitting with tariffs today? Our friends. You can't go to Canada today and buy bourbon. Trump's got this crazy thing where we're tariffing our friends, and that hits us. This is not your grandfather's Republican Party. And folks, I can't stop today without talking about this weekend. You know, there's an argument that George Bush left office as one of the most unpopular presidents, and everybody can chart what happened after Hurricane Katrina. What happened this weekend in Minnesota?
Execution.
They killed this guy. We saw the video. And what's been the Republican response? Just a pack of lies. They called this guy a domestic terrorist. Now, I notice some of the Republicans today are retreating. But folks, that's where we are. In the big ugly bill, it not only guts Medicare, Medicaid, it also has this unbelievable amount to ICE. ICE has converted into our, I hate to use the word, just Gestapo. We have people in administration seriously saying they can knock on doors and demand your papers. Is that where we are? Trump's numbers have never been worse than right now. Will it resonate in our 5th congressional district? You know, I have made 50 stops, and I am more encouraged now than ever. My plan, you know, I'm so thankful I got by unopposed with the Democratic nomination. I mean, Janet would have these last minute filers. But I've been everywhere. I'm uncomfortable talking about it, but I have a checkbook. Hal Rogers hadn't had an opponent who spent any money in decades, right? I'm going to spend money. I'm going to campaign everywhere. Because frankly, I don't like us being the poorest congressional district in the nation. And then having a congressman who voted for the most anti-poor people legislation in history. That's why I'm running. When that morning, when I saw the Republicans pass that bill, and they stood there and chanted USA, USA, I said, I'm running. And I've campaigned everywhere. You know, at the end of the day, in 2027, somebody is going to be sworn in as your congressman in the 5th Congressional District. Will it be an 89-year-old man in the minority? How much influence would Hal Rogers have after the Democrats take the House? Or will it be a newly elected rural Democrat? People ask me, what kind of Democrat am I? I'm a rural Democrat. We have different issues. And I admit the Democratic Party has not a good reputation. We are known as a New York, California elitist party. But I have different issues. At the David School, my kids can't get on the internet because there's no internet out there. They can't get on cell phones. We still have large swatches of the 5th Congressional District can't get access to city water. We have terrible roads, and we also already have a hospital shortage. Not even talking about the 36 hospitals. I live in Floyd County. Three counties that border Floyd have how many hospitals? 0. There's not a hospital in Martin County. There's not a hospital in Knott County. There's not a hospital in Magoffin County. In 9 of the 10 poorest counties in this Commonwealth, I think one of them's here, right? I want to do something about that. You know, how can I win this election? It's really up to us. Here's coming events. Thursday, we have invited the U.S. Democratic Senate candidates to the Hazard Forum. By the way, I think we can win that Senate race. I have no particular candidate I'm interested in, but we've invited all of them. The Monday, you're all invited to my birthday party. I was born on Groundhog Day. The Pulaski Democratic Women's Club are hosting me. I've got a website, Ned for Congress, but my plan is to be everywhere and talk to people. And I always end with this. You know, Hal Rogers doesn't make appearances anymore. I always say, if anybody has any questions, I'll answer any question, anytime. My cell phone number is public record, 606-791-1141. Anybody can call me anytime, I'll answer any question. But what I've tried to do in this campaign is not only talk, and probably I talk too much, but listen. And you know what 90% of what I've heard is my hospital closing. We have a doctor shortage. What are we going to do? And the depressing part is, folks, we are the poorest congressional in the nation. And by Hal Rogers committing political treason to vote for that terrible bill, he's guaranteed we're going to stay number one for a long time. And that's why I'm proud to be his opponent, and I'm looking for better days ahead. And my hope is, if I get elected, I think I'll be able to get stuff done. But I'll tell you what will really help me get stuff done 2 years later. I went to Vanderbilt University. There's another guy who went to Vanderbilt University, you might have heard of him, named Andy Beshear. We can get Andy Beshear elected president, we get a lot done. Thank you, brother. Now, if you have to answer any questions. Anybody got a question, please do. Don't tell me I bored you all. Thanks, folks, appreciate it.